Greetings, class. This is the first video for Chapter 8, which is about social stratification. So, as we start in this chapter, we are starting a new unit that is focusing on different issues of social inequality. So, it's fitting that we're starting with social stratification as we start that new chapter. So, in previous discussions and previous classes, we talked about social class. Well, today we're adding in another layer and talking about social stratification, and you might be wondering, what is the difference? Well, social stratification is the creation of layers in a population of people, and it usually has to do with unequal shares of income, wealth, power, and prestige. And social class is the individual layers that people are separated into. That's the upper class, the middle class, the lower or working class, okay? So to differentiate, if the triangle that you see on the slide in the background, that is the social stratification. It's where those layers are created, and the individual layers are called social classes. So remember that we are stratified, or we are separated based upon our access to income, wealth, power, and prestige. So those at the top of the triangle have access to more of these, and people who are at the bottom have access to less. And the triangle may look a little strange because you're thinking more, it should be the bigger at the top. Well, what the triangle represents is number of people, okay? So there's fewer people at the top of the stratification than at the bottom. So the people at the top, there's fewer of them, but they have access to more wealth, income, power, and prestige. So let's read in the little box if you have your book. I always like these little blue boxes because they get us started very well. Is federal spending on social welfare programs excessive? A significant proportion of the U.S. population is unhappy with the amount of tax dollars being spent on the poor. Americans, however, seriously overestimate the proportion of federal budget that is spent on welfare. Less money in real terms was spent on welfare recipients in 2002 than in 1997. So what that's saying is the amount of money that's being spent on welfare is actually decreasing. Besides, these welfare expenditures account for less than 1% of the total federal expenditures, a reduction of 3/4 since 1970, and less than 1/5 of 1% of the total GNP, or the gross national product of the United States. Negative attitudes towards welfare recipients are part of American culture, and these attitudes stigmatize the poor. Although all societies have social inequality, not all societies develop negative and false stereotypes of them at the bottom. So what this is saying is that people who are at the bottom of our social stratification typically get things that we call welfare. And there's a stigma attached to that. And so what we're going to look at is we're going to take a hard look at how this stratification is created, what it means for the people and where they fall, and like the things that kind of happen as a result of that in our society. Okay, so now we're going to look at the dimensions of social stratification. So there's 3 different dimensions. There's the economic, the power, and the prestige. So what we're looking at is, how is this stratification created? So they are created based on the economy, or that's access to income and wealth and capital, or things that people own. Stratification occurs by the amount of power that you have, and if you exercise that power. And the third way that this stratification occurs is by prestige. Now, I asked the question there, do you think that they're related? Is the amount of money, or the economic reasons that people have, the amount of power that they have, and the amount of prestige, are those things related? Well, usually they are, but there are some circumstances where they're not. So let's take a dive into each one of these. So the economic dimension, how people are separated based upon the access that they have to income, wealth, and capital. It looks at the relationship between individuals and the economy. So remember that triangle. People with a lot of money fall towards the top. People with not a lot of money and not a lot of access to income, wealth, and capital fall at the bottom of that stratification. And remember, this triangle is lopsided. So there's a lot more people that don't have a lot of income, wealth, and capital. And there's a lot fewer people who are at the top that do have a lot of income, wealth, and capital. So what is the power dimension? The power dimension is how those with wealth or those without wealth have the ability to control the behavior of others. So think about the people who do have the ability to control others. Think about our legislators, the people who have power or that are in government. They have a lot of control about laws, about rules, about norms that are made, and usually, symbolizing by that little money sign there on the slide, they also have a lot of money. So, but we also have, there are people who don't have a lot of wealth, but do have a lot of power. Think about some of the influential leaders we've had in our culture. Think about the likes of like Dr. Martin Luther King. Think about in other cultures like Gandhi, who have had a lot of power to influence others and their behavior, but don't have a lot of wealth themselves. So this is the power. So think about it. The people at the top of that triangle usually have more access to power and are able to get people to do things, and the people at the bottom don't. Think about even in the workplaces that you work at. Usually people that make more money have a lot of more power in those organizations. And the third dimension is the prestige dimension. Remember, prestige means that a person gets recognition, respect, and admiration attached to them. And usually they hold some sort of social position, whether that's a celebrity that people look up to, that people recognize and respect. It could be the president of the United States. It could be a judge, a lawyer, a doctor, people that just get a lot of respect out of the work that they do. So prestige is defined by society and its culture. So in one culture, one position or one occupation may be highly regarded, and in a different culture, it is not. So you have to think about what culture that you're looking at. And it's based upon norms and values and what we think is important. And the big thing is that prestige is given voluntarily. It can't be demanded. So a great example, and we're going to use this term here at the bottom called conspicuous consumption. Conspicuous consumption are people who have a lot of wealth, and they're able to increase their prestige by using their wealth to buy things, and then people admire them for the stuff that they have. So think about the Kardashians, all right? So where did they come from? How did they get the prestige or the admiration or the respect of people and their followers? Like, you may not like the Kardashians, or you may like the Kardashians, but they are where they are because of this conspicuous consumption. You know, they started out as reality TV stars, and most of them are social influencers and sell things. They are known by the things that they have, and now they've branded apparel companies, they have makeup lines, they have perfume lines, they have all of these things based upon what they bought. And how did they get this way? Well, prestige is given voluntarily. People have to like them, they have to follow them, they have to hit that like button or that follow button, and that is what is increasing their respect and their admiration. So think about it. Here in the US, we must have set up some values and norms in our society that people like the Kardashians are given prestige. We are giving that to them. Now, you probably have known some celebrities that have tried to demand prestige and have maybe been very outspoken and wanting people to follow them. And usually they kind of die out because, again, this prestige is given voluntarily. We must respect them, and it cannot be demanded. So back to, I'm going to flip to the beginning. These were the three dimensions of culture, of stratification. So the three ways that that triangle can happen is based upon economic, or how much money and wealth you have, then how much power that you have, and the amount of prestige that you have. So this is ending video 1, and next we will start talking about the 3 paradigms or perspectives in sociology and stratification.